Hello and welcome to Mabinda TV. This is home of compassionate conservatism, where we advocate for a fine balance, a sweet spot between individual creative genius excellence as supported by capitalism and society excellence as supported by equality of opportunities. So this is a four-part segment. So in this four-part segment, I'll be looking at making America, Africa perspectives, ideas, and then finally heart and soul. So in Remaking America, once again, it's about the death of Henry Kissinger. So Henry Kissinger, the consequential American Secretary of State, is dead at 100 years. So what is his legacy? I think he elevated real politics above morality. So in this case, America was really fixated on being the sole superpower. Of course, it was competing with the Soviet Union in the Cold War for global dominance. So it was America on the one hand and Soviet Union, America with capitalism and Soviet Union with its communism. And I think America really won with its capitalism. I think it is individual dynamism that finally won the day at the expense of state control. And of course, there was a famine in Soviet Union. I think the Soviet was focused more on the military than on the local economy. And I think there was a famine in which about 20 million Soviets died from that wheat famine. And I think maybe that's why America then emerged as the global power of rapid. So America with its capitalism, then of course there was a Cold War between 1945 to about 1990 when the Berlin Wall fell. But then again, this was a period of calculated measures by none other than Henry Kissinger, who was the former Secretary of State under President Richard Nixon, and of course President Gerald Ford, who retained him as the Secretary of State of America. So basically, you can't get why America really blossomed. And of course, some have credited the skills of Henry Kissinger. They say he was instrumental. Of course, some say that he was he ushered in a fractured American foreign policy, and some say some say that basically America really did not play well during the Cold War. Basically, it removed the leaders that were progressive for their countries, but elevated, sustained dictators that were very brutal to their countries. Look at the massacre in East Pakistan, where about 50,000 people were dead. Cambodia, the Cambodian elected president was overthrown in an American-backed coup. Look at in Ghana. Look at the coups in Africa. Basically, at that time, there were coups and counter coups, and I think that is all thanks to Henry Kissinger. So for America, and I think that is the foreign policy That's the foreign policy. I think that America is still abides by. So America preaches democracy very much on the world stage. On the outside, it preaches democracy, but you can't be sure that the State Department does not follow that sort of thing. It is really just for the cameras. This sort of foreign policy that America preaches, it is just for the cameras. That is, the State Department does not follow through that, and I think. That is where we should be concerned about maybe the legacy of Henry Kissinger, that he ushered in an American foreign policy that was about real politics rather than an American foreign policy that was anchored on morality, making America to be that shining city on the hill where all other countries will admire. So America really, I think its democracy is wobbling, and I think right now America really has to, I think at this time really America has to withdraw from the world and solve its own internal challenges. Look at the problems that encumber America, for instance. Look at the daily gun violence. Look at the disappearing middle class in America. If America is not very careful, then there will be only two classes in America. That is the billionaire class. And that is the billionaire class, and then of course the billionaire class and the downtrodden poor. So for America, then I would presume that it has to do more in order to maybe improve its situation at home. I think it has a very bad fiscal policy, and maybe that is why if America wants to rule the world, then it has to solve its own internal challenges. Of course, Henry Kissinger pivoted America away from Europe to China, and I think you heard during the Obama presidency, America wanted to be that wanted to focus on Asia as its new pivot, of course, to the detriment of the former American allies in Europe, maybe like France, like Britain. So basically, it was an astonishment when Henry Kissinger traveled to China and arranged for the visit of Richard Nixon to China. And I think when Richard Nixon visited China in 1972, that was the beginning of Chinese growth. And very much now China is a $17 trillion economy. It is the world's second largest economy, and basically the ascendant China is a threat to the United States. So an ascendant China is a threat to the United States as China's economy is growing. And I think what really astounds America, what really astounds America so much, what makes China a threat is not even the economy. It is that China has a 1.5 billion people as its population, while America is only 330 million. So basically, just imagine if the Chinese could have the same living standards as America. Then I think just imagine if China could have the same living standards as America, and then I think China could very much overtake America, and I think maybe that's what worries America. If China could be a small country like Singapore, like South Korea, like Malaysia, America will not even be bothered, like Luxembourg. America is not bothered maybe by countries such as Qatar, but it is the sheer size. It is the sheer size of the Chinese population that bothers America. Now I think now China is an ascendant power, and very much China considers itself as a developing country. China considers itself as a developing country and not a developed country. So imagine if China could attain the same living standards as America, then you can be sure that China could overtake America very much. And I think maybe Henry Kissinger regrets why he pivoted towards China, but it's something we're going to see. It is something that we're going to see, and I think for now then, I think that is how power went away from the Soviet Union. Of course, now Soviet Union has come back under an ascendant China, an ascendant Russia. So Russia is taking over from where the Soviet Union left, but Russia is very good on its military. I think in terms of military capabilities, remember it was the first country to send someone to the moon, but then of course Russia was Soviet Union was the first country to send someone to the moon, and of course in terms of military capabilities, then it is very much very strong. But of course no one knows the kind of nuclear that Russia possesses. Of course you cannot match America in terms of spending on the military. America spends about $900 billion on the military, and of course all the other countries in the world combined, they cannot match America's military. So that's why I tend to think that America really, what sustains it, maybe it has decided it cannot match China in terms of the economy, but then in terms of the military, then America can match, no country in the world can reach America in terms of the military. So I would tend to think that right now, then China, then America is number one in the world because it spends about $900 billion, about a third of its budget on the military. So you can be sure they have decided that if China is going to ascend, if Russia is going to ascend, then they are going to attack its military. And I think you heard the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, the Chinese President Xi Jinping, saying that basically what America needs, that is what America needs, Xi Jinping saying that China should be prepared that at some point in the future, Xi Jinping warning his people that at some point in the future there could be a war between China and the West. So of course China views America very grudgingly, but of course for Henry Kissinger, he was given a royal status. Henry Kissinger was given a royal status in China. Basically, they welcomed him with both hands. They thought that this is the kind of relations China hopes to see with the United States. So basically, Henry Kissinger, and you had Disney. Disney basically going back to you had Disney going back basically to trying to pass through the Kissinger consulting firm in order to set a $5.5 billion Disney park in Shanghai, China. So you can be sure the fractured relations between America and China. So it is Henry Kissinger who could go around that. So you can imagine very much how China you can imagine how China views Henry Kissinger. That even Disney, that is the Disney basically wanted to create a park in Shanghai, China, for about $5.5 billion. So you can, I think the relations between America and China are going to be fractured. But I think Henry Kissinger ushered in an age of a fractured foreign policy for America, and it's one that we are going to be watching very, very closely to see how then will this ascendant China take on the might of the United States. So I tend to think that will be so. So I think it's about real politics. It's about America elevating real politics above morality. So America doesn't care so long as it gets to be the dominant global power. I don't think it cares for order in the world. It just wants to be a global power, the sole superpower in the world. But of course, maybe circumstances have changed now. Maybe America is going to maybe have to share global power with some other powers. Maybe the world now is not a unipolar America-led world. Maybe the world right now is a multipolar world, and I think maybe you have a multipolar world between Russia, America, China, and an ascendant European Union. So that's a multipolar world. So what was its legacy? Again, maybe I'm looking at the legacy of Henry Kissinger. Then in Africa, it's about real politics being elevated above morality, where governments were toppled. I don't think Henry Kissinger had a lot of time for poor countries in Africa and Asia and Latin America. So basically, it's about toppling. I think he toppled a Chilean dictator. That is Henry Kissinger for you. In Africa, it was about the rise, the competing of communism and capitalism. I think that's how in Africa, it was about the competing of communism and capitalism. I think that's how that's how Africa really got to be in the middle of these two. And you find leaders such as Kwame Nkrumah was for communists. Maybe that is why he was overthrown in a CIA-backed coup. Of course, he wanted Africa to be united. Of course, he was overthrown while on a visit to China. He was willing to delay the independence of Ghana until the whole of Africa could get independence and be united. But of course, he did not live to see his ideas. You had the Afro-Caribbean George Palmer believing so much in the ideas of Kwame Nkrumah that he thought he would be the one to liberate the black race. So that's Kwame Nkrumah for you. And then of course you have so that's about that is about Henry Kissinger policy in Africa. Many of the African countries were poor, so maybe they for Henry Kissinger they were just pawns in a big game of chess. For Henry Kissinger, they were just pawns in a big game of chess. So that is why they did not do so much for. That is why they did not do so much for this African country. So that's the legacy of Henry Kissinger on Africa. Then in ideas, I'm asking, can a company have the resources of a multinational but yet have the speed and agility of a startup? That is, can a company have the resources of a multinational but yet have the speed and agility of a startup? So you can see Nokia and Motorola, they were the market leaders in feature phones. That is, Nokia and Motorola were the market leaders in feature phones, but they did not emerge to be the market leaders in smartphones. That was taken up by the likes of Samsung, Huawei, and Apple, of course. And then you had Microsoft being the market leader in personal computing software, but then not being the market leader in internet. Of course, before that there was IBM, International Business Machine, which was the market leader in computer making, but did not transition to be the market leader in software making. That was taken up by Bill Gates and Microsoft, so with his operating system. So you have Microsoft making you have Microsoft making that is Windows. You have Microsoft making that is personal computing software, and Office being the main cash cow. So even as Microsoft tried to transition to be a giant internet company, it did not succeed to be. That was taken up by the likes of Google, which very much beat Microsoft to that game. And then, of course, Google itself failed to transition from being an internet search engine leader to being a leader in social media. So that was taken up by the likes of Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and of course Snapchat. Of course, Facebook says that it wants to transition to 3D augmented reality, and of course the other one is AI. So of course AI is a very now it's the new term, the new kid on the block. Of course, every company is talking about being the leader of AI. Of course, you had Chat GPT, where the CEO, of course, was kicked out but then returned. I think that is Sam Altman. So I think this just shows you that a company that is incumbent leader is a leader in an incumbent industry and then fails to transition to be that leader in another industry. So for entrepreneurs, I think they say it is great that for capitalists, they say it is great that a company, however much $1 trillion company it is, it can be taken down. It can be taken down, but then of course they say that that is for a business person it is very scary for a CEO that his company that basically a company that has is a leader in an industry is very scary for a CEO, that it could lose that leadership to a very newbie startup that has all the resources. Then in Heart and Soul, I'll be asking, how do Christians become the salt of the world? That is, how do Christians become the salt of the world? Because remember, Jesus said that you be the salt of the world. So how do Christians how do Christians have impact in the world? And I think that's something that we have to. How do Christians have impact in the world? I think it's by very much having faith and belief in what they do that they shall succeed no matter what. And I think a Christian should be that candle that cannot be put under the table, that has to be put on the table to light. Has to be, Christians have to be that city on the hill that shines for everyone to see. And I think Christians, if they lose their saltness, that is what Jesus asked, if they lose their saltness, then how do they then become, if they lose their saltness, then how do they become that how do they become impactful wherever they are? And I think some people see darkness whereas Christians should be seeing light. Some people, where people see darkness, I think Christians should be seeing light. And I think that's how we can then have Christians that basically are at the top of the world, and I think I've been impactful. So this has been Mabinda TV, where I have looked at in the Making America, the death of Henry Kissinger. How did he usher in an American fractured foreign policies, and in Africa perspectives, what was the foreign policy of Henry Kissinger on Africa? Then in ideas, how can a company have the resources of a multinational yet have the speed and agility of a startup? And then in Heart and Soul, I'm looking at how can Christians have impact? How can Christians have impact in this world? That is, how can Christians be the salt of the world? So this has been Mabinda TV. This is home of compassionate conservatism, where we advocate for a fine balance, a sweet spot between individual creative genius excellence as afforded by capitalism and a society excellence as afforded by equality of opportunity. So it's equality of opportunity that we are seeking. So in other words, we are seeking for capitalism with a human first. That is capitalism with a human first.